Jane is going to be speaking to us first, and she's the program director of TechSoup Canada, and she's part of what makes all this programming really as amazing as it is. She works to sort of create some of the partnerships between the public, the private, and the not-for-profit sectors that we have going on here today at TechSoup Canada, and she is also the Director of Corporate Social Responsibility at the IT Association of Canada, is that correct? Yeah. So she's going to be speaking to us more about sort of the, I suppose, the theoretical side of CRM. And if you would you just take it away? And I'll be introducing and saying a little bit more about Brian when he comes out to speak. Yes?
Just so some of us may not be taking copious notes, do we get a copy of it? Terrific, thank you.
Yeah, so just after the session, normally a few days after, I will put up on our website a blog post with links to the presentations you saw today, links to a video of the presentation, and as well just a few notes from one of our volunteers. We'll write up a description of the event, so these resources will be available to you. You may also want to take notes, but have a look out for that. I'll email it to the meetup group, so if you'd like to send your email meetups directly to the trash, you might not want to do that, otherwise don't put it on email.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We good? Cool. So Jane, if you would, let's have
Hey. So I get the easiest presentation. I do the really high-level stuff, and the really fun things are for the intelligent people here sitting in the first row. So for those of you that may not know, I am the program director for TechSoup Canada. How many of you have heard of TechSoup Canada? Oh, awesome. Okay, and how many of you have actually ordered, requested donations through our donations program? Oh, okay, interesting. So we are essentially a project of TechSoup Global, the Center for Social Innovation in this lovely space, as well as the Information Technology Association of Canada. And we have several programs and services to really, I mean, our goal is really to look at how do we help nonprofit sector to access technology, because we believe that there are various barriers to technology. Obviously, there is a cost barrier to tools, but also knowing what CRMs are and how do you know which CRMs to choose. There's that knowledge piece. And then having people who get CRMs to help you implement it, for example, the talent piece. So we try to work in all of these different areas. The donations program is basically how we help with the tools. We work with over 25 corporate partners, Microsoft, Adobe, Symantec, Cisco, Citrix, and hopefully very soon Sumac, to bring donated software and hardware to the nonprofit sector. So what you may want to do, if you haven't already, is register with us on our website, and once you're qualified, you can then proceed to request for donations. But in addition to that, we have the Net Tuesdays events. We have webinars that we host. I'm going to be doing another one on CRMs. So for those of you that may know of colleagues who can't attend tonight's event, I'll be doing another one on a webinar on CRMs next week. Yes. Tyranny schedules these things for me, so I just do her bidding. So yeah. Thank you and welcome to our event. Now, before we start, I'm really curious. We talk about CRMs. What do you think about when you hear the term CRM? Anyone?
What do I think about? Efficiency.
Efficiency, okay.
Database?
Database, okay. Anyone else? I heard lists earlier. Email list?
One list.
One list, okay.
Tracking all those little pieces of information about people.
Tracking, yeah, that's a really great one. Anybody else?
Like a centralized area for everyone to access information.
This is really good. This is actually better than what I have. Now I'm a little nervous about cooking the next one. Okay, so really it's about databases. It's lists, and all of these things track different things for you. So it could be for donor management, for some of the organizations. If you receive donation, you might want to manage your people who donate to you, but also email management. There is your case management if you're a social service organization. So you may care less about how much money you're getting in terms of fundraising, but more about the clients that come through your door. As well, membership management. I've heard a couple of organizations talk about membership. How do you know who your members are? How do you know if they have paid their membership dues? How do you know if they're happy with the member benefits that you're offering them? As well, a lot of us have suppliers and vendors, so how do you know who they are, and also at the same time, are they also your donors? Are they your supporters? Your volunteers, knowing, like, it's easy for us to track our volunteers, because we have about 5 of them, but if you are other types of organizations, you may be working with thousands of volunteers. So how do you know who they are? And how do you track what they're actually doing for you, and if they're motivated, and where they are, and what are some of the things that they care about? Of course, for a lot of the arts organizations, it's not just about volunteering. A lot of the time you deal with certain artists and talent. How do you actually manage all of those type of resources that are within your organization? So all of these things come together, and like you said, it's about all the nitty-gritty tracking of everything that you do in your organization. And it is about making your organization more efficient. But of course, when we say let's track all this information, that's a lot that we're talking about here. I'm curious, how are you guys currently tracking?
Excel.
Excel? Yes, I love Excel.
Access?
Access? Okay. I also track on pen and paper. It's called I'm answering the phone, write it down, and then I wash my pants and I realize that I went to the wash. So it's not backup system. Right.
We have the database called IMIS.
IMIS? Okay. So you have, some of you have really robust CRMs, others have Excel. Anybody else?
I just use Google Contacts.
Google Contacts? Okay. Anybody using Outlook as their email list manager? Okay, good. We had a lot of this a few years ago, like half of the people here actually raised their hands. So there was actually a survey done a few years ago by .Organize, and they asked over 500 nonprofit organizations, how are they actually tracking their contacts and their relationships? 55% of them said pen and paper. And then 52%, well, and they used a combination of things, right? So 52% said they used something like Outlook or Google Contacts, and then 58% said Excel. So as you can see, most of us are still using the traditional pen and paper. We're not really putting them into a database, a real database. We're not really analyzing the information. So CRMs. What is actually a CRM? Do you guys know what CRM stands for?
Customer or client relationship management software.
Okay, it's actually constituent relationship management software. And the word constituents is really everybody. So you may have clients, you may have donors, you may have volunteers. They're all part of the overall ecosystem of your organization. So that is basically the actually legal definition is a set of processes and supporting technologies used to acquire, retain, and enhance constituent relationships. That is probably the driest description I have ever read. But that's basically what, if you look at what CRM actually means, it is the process and the technology together. So, whenever I read something like that, I'm like, so what? I mean, that's a nice description. It's a very technical description. It's also a very theoretical description. But what does that actually mean to us as organizations? I think, as nonprofit organizations, what makes us flow, what makes us successful, what makes us operate, what makes us exist are our supporters, right? TechSoup Canada wouldn't be here today if it's not because of you guys. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the volunteers. We wouldn't be here if it's not because of our donations partners. So all of these people are basically our supporters. They're the people who contribute into the organization. They enable us to do the work that we do. So in order for us to track this information, it is core to who we are as an organization, and it is core to the operations of our organization. And if we don't know how we are actually talking to these people, how would you possibly know how successful you are as an organization, right? And if you are spending all of your time putting things on pen and paper and into Excel, then the question is, what time are you actually spending on the mission of your organization? So with a properly implemented CRM, what that enables you to do is find out who your supporters are, how are you working with them, but at the same time making it as easy as possible to track that data without making you spend most of your time doing the tracking and not so much time doing the talking. And if you really think about it, I mean, I stand up here talking to you about relationship management. If you think about relationship, what it means commitment, right? So if for our volunteers, for you to come here today, you have made that commitment to be here tonight to actually do things for us. For a donor to say, I will commit to give you $25, they have committed to that cash amount. For our donor partners, for Microsoft to give us software, they've committed to that software. So it's all about commitment. It is about that show of commitment is what your supporters do, their action to say that they support you. And knowing that what makes these people commit and knowing why they do it will help you kind of isolate who are the leaders in your community, who is most passionate about what you do, and how are they engaged on multiple levels with you. And then how do you actually build a community on top of that, right? So, but the downside to not having a proper client relationship management or CRM is that it doesn't allow you to see the overall picture, right? So you may say, well, I track all of my volunteers in my Excel spreadsheet, and then I have another database that tracks my donors' donations. And then I have another database that may track, I don't know, my events, who came out to my events. Great, now I've got 3 databases, I'm tracking a lot of stuff. Is that good? Well, how would you know if the person that came to your event also volunteered for something else? How would you know if that person actually donated to you? I'll share a personal story with you guys. So I'm all about kittens. For those of you who actually know me, I can't stop talking about them. And I apologize. So what I did was I was fostering for the Toronto Humane Society. And I fostered for them for 2 years. And it's a selfish reason because you get the cutest little kittens for a few weeks and you return them and you get another batch of really cute kittens. So it's like permanent cute kittens all the time. And you feel good about it because you feel like you're doing something really, really good for that charity. So I fostered over 26 kittens. I even had a blog about them. It was really great. I recommend any of you that likes kittens to do it. And because I felt so strongly about what they do as an organization, we also donated to them on an annual basis. So every year around Christmas time, my husband and I would sit down and we're like, how much money do we want to give and who do we want to give to? So Toronto Humane Society was on the top of our list of charities that we want to give to. We really wanted to support them. And then they came out with this wonderful thing called Be a Member of the Toronto Humane Society. So it's a membership fee that you pay. And as a member, you can vote. You can go to the AGM, you can vote on who's going to be on the board. So now I'm engaged with them on 3 different levels, right? So I'm a member, I'm a volunteer, I also am a donor. Every year I get 3 letters to say, we really need foster parents. We want you to be a foster parent. And then a few days later, I get another email that says, we really need donations. This is what we do, this is who we are, like as if I don't know what they do. We would just love $20 from you. And I'm like, but I'm donating way more than that already. And then a few days later, sure enough, there's this, we need you to become a member. Now, in the ideal world, if I got an email that said, hey Jay, I saw you fostered 26 kittens, that is really, really great. We would love to get some stories from you. We would love to have you share some of your stories with us. Would you be willing to do that? By the way, thank you for the donation of X amount last Christmas. We see that you've been donating every year. Thank you so much for your support. And our AGM is coming up in the next month. How would I feel? I would feel like a superstar, right? I would jump up and down and be like, yes, I will take 2 more litters of kittens and double my donation amount. I feel that there's that connection between me and the organization. So it made me kind of sad after a while, and I keep talking about relationship management and importance, and I'm like, wow, there's this charity that I'm really actually passionate about, and I have taken the initiative to engage with them on so many levels. And every year, around the, I can tell you when the fundraising period starts, I feel like they don't care. So I stopped. I stopped fostering. Well, actually, I stopped fostering because, oh yeah, this is being recorded. And I kind of stole the last game. So I'm technically still fostering it for the last year. It really needs, it's special needs. It's just too cute to go back. But so that's such a different story. But I have stopped donating because I felt like I wasn't getting what I needed. As a person who donates, I wanted to know that they acknowledge my donation. I wanted to know where my dollars went. So if they actually thanked me for my donation and included a copy of their annual report, I would have felt better, right? And then because of the whole fiasco with the board, I stopped becoming a member because I just didn't feel passionate anymore. So they have lost me now on 3 levels, really 2, but that's kind of sad, right? So this is an example of an organization that did not properly implement a CRM, because I'll bet you they do have 3 CRMs in the back end. They probably have an Excel spreadsheet for foster parenting, because I know they don't have a database. But I'm sure they have a donor database. I am also sure that they have a membership database. But because they don't check to see how the data overlaps and how the relationships may overlap, it's impossible for them to know that I'm engaged with them on all 3 levels. And it's impossible for them to come up with a proper strategy of how do you actually build relationships, and how do you take from someone who kind of walks by your organization and kind of say, interesting, I'd like to know a little bit about you, to, I like what you do, maybe I'll donate, to maybe I can come in and help you, to, hey, maybe one day I'd like to be one of your board members. So that different level of engagement, how do you really measure that? How do you track these people and develop those kind of champions and leaders within the community? So as you said in the back end, just because you have a database or a CRM to track information, does that mean that you're good? So if someone says, well, I don't use CRM, I'm no longer using Excel, I'm putting them all in a CRM, Salesforce or something, then we're good, right? Well, no, because technology, until we actually invent AI, can't think for you. And technology is just a tool. And a lot of what makes technology work is actually process. Is what process you're currently using in your organization, and also the people that are using it, right? So if I go and design this beautiful CRM, it's gorgeous, and it's got all of these stuff, these functionalities and charts coming out the wazoo. If your staff is really, really busy and it doesn't fit into what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, what are the chances of them actually using it? Right? If they don't see the benefit of using a CRM, if all you're telling them is you need to enter your volunteer hours into the CRM, the volunteer might be like, well, you saw me here for 5 hours. Why do I have to go and log into this thing and put 5 hours there? Like, well, that's kind of a waste of my time. If they don't really see the payoff or the benefit of it, because they're not seeing that letter that says, thank you so much for investing 5 hours a month next Tuesday. I probably should do that. If they're not seeing that, they're not going to see the benefit of actually participating. They don't actually want to be part of the process. So explaining to your staff, everyone that is going to be using the CRM, why they should be using it, and how that could not just benefit the organization, but how that could be benefited for them, how that could simplify their lives. So if you're going to use email lists, for example, moving towards a more robust email management CRM would mean that you don't have to think about how many lists you have to manage. It's really looking at, okay, who are on all 5 of my lists? And how do I craft a target email to that person that is different than someone who's just on one of my lists, right? And making it as easy as possible for you to do that. Isolate the data that's important to you. And then how do you then integrate it into your existing process so your staff can send information out, relevant information to the relevant people. And of course, there is really no one-size-fits-all solution because people will ask us all the time, what's the best CRM out there? Is there a CRM that would do everything? And I'm like, no. Certain CRMs are better at certain things. There are CRMs like Razor's Edge. They're really, really good at doing fundraising. Yes, they do have, volunteer management module, but compared to what they can do for you for fundraising, it pales in comparison. So if you're an organization that spend most of your activity on doing fundraising and not so much on volunteer management, that might be the right CRM for you. If you're another organization that is very, very small today, but you might be huge tomorrow, you might want to start with something that is more customizable so that Sumac is a big one where you can start with their core program and then add on modules as you grow as an organization. So 3 years from now, you may still be using Sumac, but you're going to be using it in a vastly different capacity than in day one with 3 people, right? For other things like Salesforce that are in the cloud, some things you need to think about is with Salesforce, it is if you qualify for their donations, the nonprofit donations, you do get 10 users for free. But I always say nothing is ever free, even if you use open source software. There is the customization cost that you need to think about. But also, as you grow as an organization, you need to think about what you need today, but you also need to think about what you may need next year and the year after. So for Salesforce, I would ask the question of, what happens if you grow beyond the 10 users? Then there's a real cost, ongoing cost every month to Salesforce. There is always a cost to move from one database to another, right? So when you're thinking about CRMs, you need to think about all of those things. Which CRM is easier to put your data in and also out? There are some of them out there. NetSuite is another one that I can talk about a little bit. It is really good in that it takes care of everything. It's what they want to call a one-size-fits-all. It's one-stop shop solution, and they mean it. Anything you can possibly think of that a nonprofit would need, they have it. Financial systems, you can integrate it all. But you can't really take it out very easily. So if you are committed to using them for a very long time, great. But if you ever want to try and move from NetSuite to something else, you need to prepare yourself for a very, very long and somewhat painful migration. So I talked about, any questions so far? No? Okay. Oh.
You didn't mention City.
I'm going to mention City.
Okay.
So some of the questions that you guys need to think about before choosing a CRM is, and I talked a little bit about that, is how do you make sure that you find the right one? But some of the other things would be making sure that you have the budget, the skills, and the time, right? So good rule of thumb, it doesn't matter if you choose an open source, because even with open source software, you still need to do customization. Good rule of thumb is for an organization, your IT budget really should be about 4 to 7% of your operating budget. So that's how much you should be spending on IT total. And out of that, then you can choose whether or not you want to go with a cloud solution or you want to build an in-house solution. And there's benefits of both, right? In-house solution, obviously, you have the maximum control. So having something like City CRM or Sugar CRM, you can customize it to your heart's content. Having a hosted solution like Salesforce, it means you don't have to have that in-house IT person. So again, depending on what kind of organization you are, the availability of talent for your organization, it's going to be different CRM. That would be the right solution for you. And also knowing what kind of key metrics you will actually want to track. We say we want to track everything, but in reality, you can't actually track everything. So as an organization, you'll need to sit down with your staff and say, what's actually important to us? In order for us to say we are a success as an organization, what does that actually mean? Is the number of people served? Is it really, if we are about generating awareness, is it about number of people reached? Or are we actually trying to measure how many volunteers we have, because that's the number of people in our community that's helping us with the cause. And also to looking at how your existing systems may integrate with your CRM. So if you are using something like vertical response for your email management, vertical response will probably work better with Salesforce. They are integrating it with CV CRM, but it may not integrate well with Sugar. So if you are using a particular software already, you want to look at which CRM is going to fit nicely with your existing application. And of course, the scalability part that I talked about is obviously as you grow as an organization, what does that actually mean? And you may have a small little database that tracks everything for you, but when you get bigger and if you become a bigger organization, you may actually want to move away from the single application suite, but instead actually using different applications that talk well with each other. You still have that overall dashboard, and you still know if Jane is your volunteer and donor, and also your member. But you may be using 3 different CRMs to track the individual ones because they're actually doing more for you in that area. Sorry. Okay, so this is where we can talk about what are the CRMs out there. Of course, with CRM, the term CRM is really, really general. So can you guys see this okay? Probably not. Basically, different types of CRMs. So you have donor management CRMs. Those ones are like, Carnival is a really good one. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Blackbaud. So Razor's Edge is one of the products that they do have. You do also have web-facing CRM, so Civi CRM is a major one. Microsoft Dynamics CRM, they have 2 different kinds. One is in our donation system, that's the one that you can actually purchase and it sits on your server. They just came out with the nonprofit version, which is hosted. So they're both very similar, but depending on how much you want to customize and how much you want to have an in-house solution versus a hosted solution. There's also bulk email management systems, Constant Contact, Vertical Response, MailChimp are some of the really popular ones out there. And events management, we have Civi Event, there's Register Online, there's a bunch of them. So there's actually way too many of them to list here, but this will give you an idea of how different CRMs are good in different areas. And these are the ones I kind of want to call out and talk a little bit about. I mentioned Razor's Edge, that is from Blackbaud. They are essentially the Cadillacs of fundraising software in the nonprofit sector. I would say if you are a medium to large size organization and do have a huge fundraising component, they're the ones that you want to look at. CV CRM is an open source CRM. It works really well with other content management systems like Drupal and Joomla. So if you want something that is web-based, that will be able to track a lot of data, CV CRM is a great option. It also integrates really well with other dashboarding, reporting software like Jasper Reports. So if you're looking at a suite of open source applications that may play well together and is web-based, that's definitely a great one. Well, Apricot is a good one that I usually recommend to small to medium-sized organizations that concentrate on membership management. Out of the box, they do donor management, membership management. It's really, really easy to implement. It is a hosted service, and it's quite reasonable. It's about $25 to $50 a month. Sugar CRM has 2 different kinds. There is the open source version that you can customize, put it on your own server, and you can do whatever you want with it. It is really, really flexible. It's very similar to Salesforce, but Sugar does also have a hosted service. So if you are trying to determine if you want to go the route of Salesforce, this is a really good alternative, and it is cheaper. Their hosted service, it is a little bit cheaper than the Salesforce paid version. Convio, I mentioned, is really great for fundraising as well. But what I like about them is they also do email management. So if you care about email management, fundraising, at the same time, if you are already thinking of Salesforce, it integrates really, really well with Salesforce. Democracy in Action is an application that's put together by Salsa Labs. Now, they're really, really good at doing online campaigning. So if campaign management is what you're thinking of, this is the one that I would probably recommend looking into. And of course, Salesforce. It is very popular. There are a lot of good things I can say about it. Their Salesforce Market apps allow you to choose from 300 other vendors that have basically developed applications that will integrate well with Salesforce. It is a hosted solution. You can get 10 users free through the Salesforce Donations Foundation program. But like I said, something to think about is, while it is very, very customizable, there is a huge learning curve to get used to Salesforce. If you don't have your existing processes mapped out, I would say do that first before even trying to think about Salesforce. It is very robust, but it is also pretty overwhelming because you get the whole gamut of what you might possibly think of wanting as an organization in one shot.
For all of us who don't have resources to customize, is there one up there or two up there that are really geared to nonprofits that you wouldn't have to mess with much? They're pretty good at
Yeah. Well, Apricot is a wonderful one to start off with.
Okay.
Yeah. I would also say, I was about to say, Sumac is another one. So, for example, Salesforce, if you kind of know what you're doing and you don't mind customizing, it's great. But something like Wild Apricot, Sumac, what I love about them is they're modular. And they're hosted, they're done in a way that is very easy for you to just get up and running. And then you can grow with it. It can grow with you as an organization. And I'm sure Peter can talk to you guys a little more about it later. So if you are an arts organization, you can actually choose modules that is specific for arts organizations. If you then decide, hey, I want to offer memberships, I would love to have a membership module. You can just integrate that, and instead of with something like Salesforce, it is actually quite intensive process that you need to think about. How do you actually customize it to your needs?
Thank you.
No problem. And NetSuite, of course, I mentioned it before. It is even more robust in many ways than Salesforce, but it is really difficult to get information in and out. And I mentioned also the Microsoft Nonprofit Dynamics CRM. That one is the online version of Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So it is about $11 or $12 per user per month. So it is quite affordable. Again, out of the box, this might be another alternative. So if you are looking at an online version that you can easily set up and go, that is a good one to start with as well. But because it is a hosted service, you do need to take into consideration how many users will be using that. So if you have 100 volunteers and you want each one of them to have an account, even though it's $12 per user per month, it can get very costly very quickly. So here's my very, very brief talk about CRM. Any questions so far?
I know from my particular organization, one thing that's very helpful is actually essential is the ability to track volunteer hours. And I haven't been able to find any CRM that really does that well.
That's a tricky one because how organizations track volunteer hours is almost different from every organization. So it's actually really hard to make an app. So I know with CVCRM, there is a volunteer module that can track hours, but you may have to do some customization to actually fit your needs. So to give you an example, if I'm running a festival, right, and I have volunteers, those volunteers are probably going to be in shifts, and you may have split shifts. Or at TechSoup, we have very simple hours. So those are all tracking of hours, but how you're tracking it is very different. I would definitely recommend something like CVCRM to look into.
Sumac.
And Sumac as well.
It's used extensively for that.